Hi, I'm John from Summer of Guitar, and I'm here to talk a little bit about the most important skills that you need to be a good guitar player. I'm going to talk a little bit about chords because I'd say for the beginning guitar player, this is maybe the number one thing that trips up players and is kind of a barrier to getting started. So you have to kind of learn some basic chords before you can start to really take off with guitar. The method that I use, and I've been teaching guitar for quite a while now, and the thing that's worked the best for students, I'm going to give you 3 tips for that. The first tip would be practice every day. This is something that my students kind of balk at for some reason. I don't know why, but they think that it's not reasonable to that I ask them to practice every day. But I'd say that it's maybe the most important thing that you get your guitar in your hands and just play something. It doesn't need to be a specific lesson or a specific drill or anything like that, but just that you play something. That's the first thing. Make sure you're practicing every day, sometimes multiple times a day, and it doesn't have to be for a long time, guys, either. You can play for 10 to 20 minutes a day and see quite a bit of improvement. If you want to learn it faster, you can practice for more. But I'd say especially in the first couple weeks, you'll be hurting if you spend more than 10 to 20 minutes on the guitar. Second tip that I'd like to talk about is just how do you learn chords. When I was first learning, I did not have this method as something that I used for learning guitar, but it's something that I've found is very beneficial for my students. So say you're learning the A chord, right? A chord, pretty simple. Most students kind of get it like pretty fast. Or at least their brain gets it, right? They've figured out like, okay, it's just the second fret of the fourth, third, and second string, right? It's not hard. You just put your fingers down and you get it. But the trouble is, your hand does not get it right away, right? It takes a while for you to put all those fingers down and get it. And honestly, A is actually the easiest one, so it's kind of a bad example. But what I do when I'm teaching chords is have students do this. This is kind of a drill that you can use. So you put down the A chord, right? Or you put on any chord that you're learning. You have all the fingers down, and then what you do is you relax your hand and you lift the fingers off the strings. So you're just hovering barely off the strings, maybe just like a couple millimeters away, and then you put them all back down at once. And you do this about 10 times a day for each of the chords that you're trying to learn. So for me, when I was first learning, I don't know why, but the C chord was my nemesis, right? Every time I played the C chord, it was boom, boom, boom. I was putting one finger down at a time, and it was just slowing everything down. Any song that I wanted to play that had the C chord in it, I had to either stop playing for a second, get all my get my fingers down on those strings, or I would just slow the song down and just take an extra couple beats before I needed to play that chord. For me, this would have been great, but you put them all down. But once you got them all down, then you hold that position and you lift off your fingers and you hold the position right hovering over those strings. And what that does is it kind of teaches the chord position to your hand without the guitar, right? When we have the strings underneath our fingers, those are kind of like anchor points, right? They help us cheat, and you can wiggle your hand around and it's still going to stay on that chord because you're touching the strings. But when you release and stop touching the strings, you have to hold it on your own. Your fingers have to hold it on their own, okay? So that's the second tip. Third tip is, and this kind of goes along with number one, but find songs that you want to learn to play. I remember when I was first learning guitar, I had a big book of every single song by the Beatles, and that book probably taught me more about playing, especially playing chords, than anything else that I've ever done. Partially because the Beatles just used a lot of different chords, right? I mean, they weren't just using, you could start at like, Love Me Do, and you could, start with some of those easier songs and practice those easy chords, but then, you could get into some of that later stuff, and then you were suddenly playing all kinds of interesting chords, and you would kind of, as you developed as a guitar player, the music would kind of grow along with you. So it was pretty cool. So I recommend, come up with a list of songs, and on my website there's a page with some good like beginner songs and intermediate songs. It's great because it's got the chords and it's got the little chord diagrams right underneath it. So if you're learning, if your brain still hasn't memorized all those chord shapes, at least you'll be able to see them, and then you can start teaching your hand about that. So playing songs, using that method of kind of drilling to get to teach your hand the chord shapes, and then just practicing every day. If you implement those three things, you'll see a lot of growth, especially if before you've kind of just been floundering. And this is one of the things that gets me the most about playing guitar is people get discouraged by it, right? Like you start playing, you don't feel like you're getting good enough, fast enough, and so you just kind of put it to the side, and I'll get to that. I'll start playing some other time, and that can be really discouraging, right? Like, and because months will go by, and then you'll pick it, you'll look at it, and you'll be like, oh, I bought that guitar a long time ago, and I still haven't picked it up and played it. But be encouraged, all right? If you just kind of discipline yourself and play every day, you'll get over that hurdle faster than you realize. Okay, so it's one of those things where you got to kind of set your own goals, right? Like if playing guitar is something that you really want to do, well, you can do it. You can do it in a short amount of time, shorter than you realize. Think about this summer, right? Like it's June 6th today. You've got the whole summer. Maybe you've got the summer off. Maybe you're in high school or junior high or in college, or maybe you just got a little bit of extra free time this summer. Take the time every day and pick up your guitar and just see what happens. I think don't get discouraged. Don't look at it and think, oh, I'm not good enough yet, or someone's going to listen to me and it's going to be embarrassing. Don't worry about all that stuff. Just get it in your hands and start playing. Okay? So I hope that those tips helped you a little bit. I think that really one of the keys to playing guitar is just to be encouraged and just know, like, you know what? No one learned the guitar in a day. Everyone took time. They had to take time to get good at the guitar. So don't be discouraged if it takes a little bit of time and a little bit of practice. That's what it's all about. So thanks so much for watching. Please consider liking and subscribing, and we try to release new content as often as we can. Thanks. This has been Summer of Guitar.